Not every story begins with a hero, and not every monster is born that way. In the shadows of power, loyalty is bought with blood, and silence is louder than any scream. This isn't about good or evil. It's about what's left of a soul when everything else has been taken. Listen closely. Some names are whispered in fear. This is the story of one of them, Puerto Morada, a city where hope dies young and power wears a gold chain. On the edge of the slums, under a rusted sign that once read Panadiri El Sol, a boy moved like smoke, quiet, fast, and unnoticed. His name was Mateo, 10 years old, barefoot, and invisible to the world. He lived behind the bakery in a broken wooden crate, the kind used to carry bread in better neighborhoods. He ate whatever he could steal or beg. People walked past him like he was air. To most, Mateo was nothing. But that's where they were wrong. Mateo was watching, learning. He watched the men in suits walk in and out of black trucks with tinted windows. And he watched who got paid, who got slapped, who got disappeared. He didn't just survive, he studied. One afternoon, Mateo stole a wallet from a drunk tourist and handed it to a dealer, 3 times his size. The dealer took the wallet, pulled out a wad of bills, and handed Mateo a cut. No threats, no beatings, just a nod. From across the street, inside a black SUV, a man was watching. Don Silvano Ortega, the king of Puerto Morada, the boss, the one even the police feared. His eyes were sharp as broken glass. That boy, he said to his driver, he's got teeth. Later that night, as rain began to fall, Mateo was cornered by 2 older boys. They beat him for his money, left him in the mud with a busted lip and a bleeding nose. Then he saw the headlights. The black SUV pulled up. The window rolled down. "You want a real job, boy?" a voice asked. Mateo didn't answer with words. He just nodded. Weeks passed. Mateo became a runner for the Ortega cartel. He moved packages, counted money, delivered messages. He never asked questions. He never spoke more than he had to. The men started calling him Ratten, the little rat. But rats survive. One day, he corrected a lieutenant's numbers on a drug shipment. Silvano walked in, looked at the numbers, and said quietly, "The boy's right." From that day on, no one called him Ratten again. 1 year later, men in suits filled the room, cigars in hand, pistols at their waists. And there, standing beside the kingpin, was the boy. Clean suit, new shoes, cold eyes. Silvano raised his glass. No name, no bloodline, but I see more in him than I've seen in men 3 times his age. Since I don't have a child of my own after the death of my beloved wife, from this day forward, he is my son. His name is Mateo Ortega. Treat him as such, or answer to me. Some men smiled, some forced it. 1 or 2 looked away, jaw tight with jealousy. Mateo said nothing. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just looked at them calm and readable. Because Mateo knew being the king's son didn't mean safety. It meant enemies in every shadow. But he didn't care. He wasn't born lucky. He was born dangerous. Inside the cartel, not everyone liked the boy from the streets, wearing tailored suits and sitting beside the boss. Some whispered, others waited for him to slip, to break, to bleed. One of them was Tiburon, a veteran enforcer, big, bold, and mean. He'd been with the Ortega cartel for 15 years. He didn't trust Mateo, didn't like him, called him Mascota del Jefe, the boss's pet. Silvano noticed. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He just said, "It's time the boy learns what this life really means." The test. Late one night, Mateo was summoned. The room was dark. "There's a man stealing from me," he said. "An informant named Carmelo Ruiz. He used to run for me. Now, he talks to the police." He handed Mateo a pistol. "I could send anyone, but I want you to handle it tonight." Mateo looked at the gun, then at Silvano. He didn't flinch. He nodded once. Carmelo lived in a quiet part of town. Mateo waited until nightfall. He sat in a stolen car, hands sweating around the grip of the pistol. He had seen death. He had watched it, cleaned it, but he had never caused it. That night would change everything. He broke in through the back door, moved through the hallway like a ghost. Carmelo was in the kitchen, eating cold rice straight from the pot. He didn't even hear the boy behind him. Mateo raised the gun. His hands trembled. Carmelo turned slowly, eyes wide. Wait! Bang! The sound was louder than Mateo expected. The bullet hit Carmelo in the chest. He collapsed, gasping. Blood spilled across the tile floor. The rice pot rolled and crashed. Mateo stood there, frozen. For a second, he looked like a child again. Small, scared. Then he took a deep breath, walked forward, and fired again. Bang! Hours later, Mateo returned to Silvano's estate. He handed the gun back calm, collected. Silvano didn't ask what happened. He only said, "You're not a boy anymore." Mateo stood alone in his room, washing blood off his hands in the sink. His eyes stared at the mirror, cold and distant. Not sad, not proud. Killing a man doesn't make you a monster, but not feeling anything after, that's when you know you've become one. The cartel is a living thing, hungry, constantly shifting. The strongest survive, the weakest vanish. And inside the walls of Don Silvano Ortega's empire, Mateo had started to feel the cold weight of ambition. Tiburon had always been a wolf in sheep's clothing, a man with a smile that could melt you and a fist that could crush your skull. But now, the whispers about Mateo were louder. Tiburon didn't trust the boy who just killed without hesitation. He didn't trust anyone who could walk beside Don Silvano with such ease. Late one evening, Tiburon invited Mateo to his office. He offered him a drink, a rare bottle of tequila. Mateo accepted but stayed cautious. Tiburon smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You know," Tiburon said, leaning in, "your father has a lot of enemies. And it's not just the cops or the other cartels. There's treachery inside the family. You're a good soldier, Mateo, but not everyone wants you in line for the throne." Mateo stared at him, eyes narrowed. "Are you trying to threaten me?" Mateo asked. Tiburon leaned back, taking a slow sip of his drink, eyes glinting with amusement. "No, just a friendly warning. Watch your back." Mateo didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The words echoed in his mind all night. His loyalty to Silvano was unshakable. But what about the others? What did they think of him? And what did they want? Days passed, and Mateo's suspicions grew. He noticed how Tiburon started giving him sideways glances. How the older men in the cartel now greeted him with a fake smile. But the real test came when Don Silvano sent Mateo on a mission to collect a large shipment. It was a simple task drive, pick up, return. But Tiburon, sensing an opportunity, offered to accompany Mateo, saying it was for his own safety. Mateo knew better. It wasn't about safety. It was about control. Halfway to the contact's location, they were ambushed. Gunshots rang out. Tires blew. The car swerved as it crashed into a ditch. Mateo's instincts kicked in. He drew his weapon, eyes scanning for the shooters. But there was something wrong. The ambush was too clean, too planned. Mateo shot back, taking down two men. But the third Tiburon was nowhere to be found. Mateo rushed out, blood pumping, ready for a fight. The shooting stopped, but something didn't feel right. He looked around. No Tiburon. He moved to check the wreckage of the car. That's when he found it. The radio in the car was still on, and from the speaker came a voice. "Tiburon, you have the boy." Tiburon's voice crackled through. "I have him. I'll bring him to you. This ends tonight." Mateo's heart sank, but his face remained cold. Tiburon had set him up. It was all part of a plan to take him out. But Mateo was faster. He fired off 3 rounds into the woods, and Tiburon's men scattered. Tiburon stepped out from behind a tree, holding a gun, eyes filled with rage and desperation. Mateo was quicker. A shot rang out. Tiburon staggered, clutching his side as he fell behind the brush. Blood spilled, but the shadows swallowed his body whole. Mateo advanced a few steps, gun raised, but stopped. The forest was too dark, too silent. The sounds of the other men fleeing still echoed in the distance. He listened for breath, for movement, for anything. Nothing. And that silence was enough for Mateo. He exhaled sharply, chest rising and falling. His face remained cold, but his hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but the weight of betrayal. He didn't check the body. He didn't need to. Tiburon was gone. That was enough. Back at the mansion, Mateo walked through the grand doors of the cartel estate, the golden light of the chandeliers doing little to warm the chill under his skin. Silvano looked up from his desk, a half-smoked cigar glowing between his fingers. Mateo said nothing, simply placed the empty clip on the desk. Silvano stared at it, then nodded slowly. "You did what you had to do," he said, voice low. "But remember, Mateo the dead never whisper. It's the living you have to watch. Eduardo Moreira, a polished strategist in a world ruled by violence, brought in by Don Silvano to modernize the cartel. He rose quietly, international deals, clean fronts, and influence that crept through the empire like smoke. He didn't lead with fear. He offered something more seductive: opportunity. But standing in his way was Mateo, Silvano's adopted son, a man forged in blood, loyalty, and silence. Ruthless when needed, unshakably loyal, or so everyone thought. One night, Eduardo poured him a drink. "Silvano built an empire," he said, "but even kings don't live forever." Mateo didn't respond. He didn't have to. Mateo rushed to the mansion after hearing the news. He was terrified, knowing something had gone terribly wrong. As he entered the grand hall, he found the blooded body of Don Silvano lying in a pool of crimson on the cold marble floor. His father ... dead. But the room was silent. No signs of struggle. No gunshots. Only the thick stench of blood. Mateo knelt beside Silvano's body, his breath catching in his throat. He could hear the faint rasp of Silvano's voice, weak, but still full of authority. Silvano whispered, his eyes barely open. Find the one who did this, and make them pay. Now, the walls are closing in. The cartel is fractured. Whispers swirl through the ranks. Some say Eduardo moved too fast to take control. Others are Mateo, the quiet son who returned just minutes too late. Allies become distant. Enemies grow bold. Mateo searches for the truth, or hides from it. Because in this world, betrayal never wears just one. Who killed Don Silvano? Was it Mateo, the son raised in blood? Eduardo, the strategist with deadly ambition? Or did Tiburon survive and return for vengeance? Part 2 will unravel the lies, the secrets, and the truth that no one saw coming. A new side of Mateo will rise, and not everyone will survive. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think pulled the trigger? Subscribe to StoryCraft because the story is just getting started.